California.
I don't. I'll edit that out. Is that right?
We'll edit it out.
You really did that?
I don't know, but I'm sure you'll edit it out if it's wrong.
Man, we're sucked today.
We are sucked today.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Episode number 10. So this episode we go to Massachusetts and we hit up 3 different cities and it's a lot of information.
Yeah, it's a small state, but there's so much history to go over. I feel like we just barely scratched the surface with our trip. We were there for
A week?
probably a week.
Yeah, we barely scratched the surface and I barely know half of what we...
Learned?
I barely remember half of what we learned.
Yeah. So our first stop after leaving Maine was Salem. So Salem is the city where they have the witch trials. They accuse like 200 people of being witches, and they
Killed 20?
They killed 20. So it's kind of a morbid history. But we were there in October, and I didn't know how big Salem was during Halloween season. I mean, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
But when we first arrived there, it was like a lot of people dressed up in like costumes, getting ready for Halloween. And we were just there in like the beginning of October.
Yeah, like the first week of October and everyone's already dressed up. And
so apparently it's where people go to celebrate and, honor the witches. I don't even know. Do you think they're real, like
people that proclaim they're witches now like to be there?
Just kind of odd because that's where they killed all the witches. Doesn't make sense, but anyway. So when we got there, we did another audio tour. Kory loves these audio tours.
I like them because you go at your own pace. You don't have someone telling you have to be here at this time, you have to be here. If you need a break, take a break. If you want to just jam through it or skip some parts, you can do whatever you want on your time.
Yeah, I feel like it's convenient if like going at your own pace is important for you, but as far as information wise, I don't know if we got the most information out of it. But I mean, I liked it.
Yeah.
I think you'd learn more if you did like the city tours and paid a tour guide to walk you through the streets, because they put their own little spin on things. But I mean, I think it pretty much did what we wanted it to. So we spent the day pretty much just walking around Salem, following the audio tour, and then we also ended up at like a National Historic Site, like a port in Salem. Apparently Salem was like a big port city way back when. And so the boats would come in with all their goods, and there was even like a customs building. Do you remember the customs building?
Yeah, I remember the customs building.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I think it became dated because the port is shallow, and then when they started building bigger ships, the bigger ships couldn't dock into the port, and so I think they moved on to Boston Harbor. But it was set up like with like a ship in the port, and so you kind of get like an idea of what it would be like at the time when they were like a booming town. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah, and we also went to a restaurant like halfway through our tour.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, but as I was taking a pee, I read on the wall. Right on the wall, it tells you that this is the first place that a public phone call was made. Like not in the bathroom. The site, the hotel. I mean the restaurant was a place where the first public phone call was made. Not testing or anything, just actual person to person.
Yeah. So the really cool thing about the East Coast is there's a lot of history that happens there. So buildings that like important things took place in are still up, and you can still like see it. And it's kind of strange because some buildings they preserve, it's like as historical, but other buildings it's like, I remember when we were in Boston there was a Chipotle.
Yeah.
And it was like in a really historic building and they turned into a Chipotle, and they should have probably kept that as something historic, but anyway. So after Salem we ended up going to Plymouth. I was kind of excited to see Plymouth Rock. I don't know why. I just thought it'd be really cool.
It's like this big.
And it's not even like, I don't know how accurate the information is, if that's the actual Plymouth Rock. It was kind of just a story that was passed down from like
Did we take a tour
one
there?
family. Yeah, we did a walking tour.
We didn't do the tour with the people?
No, we
I
didn't.
think I overheard the guy telling the story of the rock being taken up to a city hall and then brought back, and people were taking chunks of it for their own memorabilia, and now that's why it's so small. You heard anything like that?
I don't know, but I'm sure you'll edit that if it's wrong.
Oh,
Anyway, so it was I thought it was really cool because you hear Plymouth Rock in the history books and you see a rock there. I mean, it's nothing really special, it's just a rock, and it's kind of like secure. They built like columns, and
yeah, they built a little.
put a photo on it.
Yeah.
Oh, and they also had a replica of the Mayflower.
Yeah.
And it was actually a really small boat. I thought I couldn't believe that many people.
I forget the number. Do you know the number of people they could fit on it? But
I don't remember.
anyways, it looked like it'd be comfortable for about 10 people, but I think it's over 100 that was.
It was like packed in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about how those people just decided to leave their country, pack everybody into this little boat, and then end up in a destination where they have to start like everything from scratch. Like, they have to build a community, they have to start like building out of nothing. And like the balls of those people. Like, I don't know if I'd do that.
And the boat might have gone off
Yeah.
the face of the earth.
That's true. I don't know, did they believe that the earth was flat at that
No,
time?
they already knew.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so much respect to somebody who just do something like that. Anyway, so from the audio tour, you learn that the Pilgrims and Native Americans were actually friends, because they kind of needed each other. So the Native Americans showed the Pilgrims how to work the land and fish, and then the Pilgrims had the weapons that the Native Americans needed in order to fight the other tribes. Do you remember that?
I just remember they ate seafood.
Yeah, and so that's where Thanksgiving comes from, is because they, after the harvest, decided to celebrate and have a feast, but it's not like our Thanksgiving now.
No turkey and potatoes.
No. So since they were by the ocean, the food that's readily available is seafood, so that's what they had for Thanksgiving. So I guess from now on we're gonna have seafood for Thanksgiving.
Have what?
Seafood.
Seafood.
Yeah. Lobster for Thanksgiving?
Okay,
I don't
deal.
know, yeah.
I don't blame you. Damn good deal.
Alright. From Plymouth, we went to Boston. And too bad we didn't go during baseball season because we could have gotten to Fenway, but it was playoff season, or playoff time, but we
Didn't Bill go to a playoff game?
Bill did go to a playoff game, but that's later on. That's in the future.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. It's been forever, I don't remember.
So, in Boston, we did another audio walking tour, and this one was on the Freedom Trail. And I don't know if you remember the Freedom Trail. All along the sidewalks, there's brick lines that like kind of guide you on where to go.
That's a real cool thing to have in a big city, so like you don't get lost. You literally just follow the brick and then it'll lead you to important places. So the first one we stopped at was the church where Paul Revere.
Put up the light.
He didn't put up the light. Someone put up the light in church, and then Paul Revere saw it and then ran, right?
Okay. Not ran, rode a horse.
I'm sorry, rode a horse. And so I learned so much going through the Freedom Trail and on the audio tour, way more than I learned in school, which is really neat. So the way I assumed Paul Revere was, who he was just like a random person who just did the ride. But apparently he was like a big figure in politics, and he was a businessman and kind of important in American history, but I didn't know how important. So we also stopped, well, I did a little tour through his house. That was kind of cool. Yeah, I saw his gun. That was neat. It was like in one of the cabinets. I think after his house, we ended up just walking, and then we were at the site of the Boston Massacre. That was kind of cool. It was like a small, old building in the middle of skyscrapers.
Well,
do you remember that?
The whole trail is that way. It's like the history was like set in all the new stuff. It's like it's like two different worlds that were just smashed together.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, the Boston Massacre area, like you learn about it in school, but then when you're there, you're like, oh wow, this wasn't a very big place where it happened. It's like, this is like a house, basically a 2-story house or something. There's a balcony that the guy, I guess, accidentally shot from.
I just shot myself.
Yeah, and there's also the Boston Tea Party, the harbor where they have the Boston Tea Party. There's so much to the history that's not told. Like, I learned that most of the people were very unhappy with the Boston Tea Party because it was mainly the tea merchants who decided to throw the tea overboard. And most of the people were being punished.
According to this, you were a party to...
A party to, not the party.
I guess they do a...
Reenactment?
Yeah, they do a reenactment every year, and they just throw some... I don't know if they put actual tea in there, but...
I don't know. Oh, really cool thing also, there's grave sites of some really historically important people that we saw. Paul Revere, John Hancock, Sam Adams,
Beer maker.
And the victims of the Boston Massacre, they're all buried in the same graveyard, and you can actually just walk around and see their grave sites. That was kind of interesting to know that these people in history are like buried right there.
They're here.
Oh man. Yeah, so, during this whole tour of history, I felt like history is way more complicated than they taught us in school.
Yeah, it seems like people, like even stuff we learned after going to Boston, it's kind of like you hear one side of the story, and it's usually the side that prevails, which makes sense, but you don't hear the other side.
The men tell no tales.
So what I learned was not everybody was for the American Revolution. A lot of the people didn't want to revolt against the king because revolting against the crown meant that you'd have to start a whole new country with a whole new government, and that's something really difficult, you know? It's how do you rule the people? And then you have to set rules and laws, and not a lot of people wanted that. Like, it made me wonder if I lived in that time, if I would want to be part of the American Revolution or not, or if I don't know, I seem to be...
Yeah. I mean, most people don't like change.
Yeah.
Change means uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
people don't want to go through it.
Yeah. So, it's just, I feel like it makes you sit back and think, how would I react if I were in that situation? And not just with this, with like everything in history. And it makes you think about your views now. Like, am I on the right side of things? I don't know. You know?
Before she gets too political, we're gonna end this one.
So that was Massachusetts.
Yep, Massachusetts.
We'll see you next time.